Hello everyone and welcome to today's show with sportsbookreview.com. I'm your host Lee Martin, here to take a look into UFC Fight Night. We're going to break down the entire card for UFC 251 Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. And joining me today, I have SBR's UFC expert David Manyun and lead host of MMA Mania, Matt Ryan. Before we get into any UFC talk, like always, go ahead, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show. Now let's get right to it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day so far, but I'm just gonna jump right in. And Dave, I'm gonna start off with you today. Do you have a favorite prelim fight, a top pick and breakdown for it? What are your thoughts on the prelims?
Hello guys. It's not a beautiful day for me. It's supposed to be Fight Island this weekend. I would have liked a little bit of sun where I am, but we've had torrential rain for the past 3 days, so yeah, rain out my window, but a Fight Island on my TV. The preliminary card is not that great in comparison to the main card. In terms of betting, my favorite fight is Roman Bogota versus Leonardo Santos. I think the guy making his UFC debut is obviously going to come in undervalued, and I think he's got a chance against Leonardo Santos. Santos has been out for over 13 months. Bogotov is undefeated. Now, I know a lot of guys can come in with these padded records where they've been fighting guys on the regional scene where they've had broken records, but Bogotov is not one of them guys. As most MMA fans know, the nation of Russia is a place that holds some of the greatest fighters in the world, and Bogotov reminds me of Khabib Nurmagomedov. So as soon as I see someone that is reminiscent of Khabib and see them at plus 150 making their debut against a 40-year-old, that's a price I'm willing to take. Now, Santos is no bum. Don't get it twisted. He's definitely a high-level fighter, and I believe is undefeated in the UFC, but injuries have held him back, and injuries have prevented him from having a prosperous career. So yeah, the prelims, I think Bogotov is definitely my favorite betting pick. In terms of favorite fight, I'm excited to see Volkanovski back in the cage. I can't lie. So yeah, that's all I have for the prelims.
All right, well, if you do want to get on the Santos and Bogota fight via BetOnline, Santos is minus 170 and Bogota is plus 145. Now, Matt, do you have a favorite prelim fight or a fight that you're looking forward to?
This prelim card is not the best. The common conversation ever since UFC came back from what I call the never-ending off-season was the lack of value in some of the cards they've been putting out. Now, the main card for UFC 251, you can't argue against it. 3 title fights. The main event got better over the weekend. We'll get into that later. But this prelim card is leaving a lot to be desired, in my opinion. I'm going to agree with Dave in the idea that the Ozdemir fight's the most interesting fight. But now he's facing off against a guy who, when you type in UFC 251 onto Google, does not have a profile photo in the listing. And if you go to the UFC website, he does not have a photo, and it's Yuri Prochaska. And when you've got a guy like Volkan Ozdemir, who's the number 7 ranked 205-pound fighter in the UFC, and he's fighting up against a guy who looks like the vacant title place card holder you put in when someone gets hurt, it's not really a good sign for this undercard, but it is a good sign if you're looking for Volkan Ozdemir to walk all over somebody on national television, which he'll probably be doing this Saturday night.
Yep, and if you do want to get in on that fight, again, via BetOnline, Ozdemir is minus 163 and Prochaska is plus 143. So there's that. Now let's hop on over to the main card. We're going to start off with the women's flyweight, Amanda Ribas versus Paige Vanzant. Their odds. Ribas is... Gosh, she went up a lot again. Minus 1,001, and Vanzant is plus 676. Matt, I'm going to start off with you. Can you give me your breakdown for that fight?
Paige Vanzant is on borrowed time in the UFC, and she has been one of the loudest voices in the UFC. And it was really confusing. Just the conversation based around all of it. and she wants to walk from the UFC. She wants to test her value in the free market. So she's going to try to prove her value in this fight against Rivas. There's no real argument against that. But her record the last 5 fights is 2-3 inside the octagon. So she's got a lot to prove. She's eyeing a move across the octagon, and she's been injured. Like, her value has consistently been hampered by her record and the fact that she has been a liability to the UFC over the past 2 years because she's not been able to get inside the cage. This is the first time we're really going to be able to see her fight in 2020. And she's going up against someone in Rivas who got to win her UFC debut. She's 8-1 outside the octagon. And Vanzant, when she's fought somebody with a great record or someone that's comparable in a skill set to her, she's not been able to really rise above or kind of meet the challenge or meet the expectation. You can claim the Ostovich fight was a good indicator for what she can do inside the octagon, but there's more expected from Vanzant than Ostovich. And it's really hard for me to see Vanzant getting the win here, but we're going to see a dedicated Vanzant. She doesn't slack inside the cage, but all those external distractions, her argument about how she should be paid more when there hasn't really been a value add to her career over the past 2 years, you're going to see a more focused Vanzant, but I think Rivas has the edge in this fight.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dave, do you agree with what Matt said, or do you have a different take on Ribas versus Vanzant?
No, completely. Whenever Paige Vanzant has any type of media surrounding her, it's usually not even going to be fight related. If you're into TikTok, dancing, social media, and them type of things, then you're probably a fan of Paige Vanzant. She has recently gone on record to say that she doesn't earn enough, they don't pay her enough. The girl has turned up to work a handful of times in the past couple of years. She's really been quite disrespectful towards fighter pay and things like that, and she doesn't even compete that much. So that's its own thing in itself. But we should note that in all this time she has been off. She's got a new boyfriend. It's not Cody Garbrandt this time. It's not Andre Feely this time. She's going out with some guy from Bellator. I don't even know his name. But he is undefeated and he's pretty dangerous. And it's not a bad thing to have, a partner who is such a good martial artist. So we might see some new things from Paige inside the octagon this weekend. Now let's talk about Amanda Ribas. That line is disgraceful. When these lines come out and they're reaching close to the thousands, it's expected with elite level athletes like Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, John Jones. But Amanda Ribas at -1,000, I'm sorry, that's not justified whatsoever. 5-1 maybe, 6-1. Pushing it a little bit. As soon as that goes into the 700s, 800s, 900s, it's a complete joke. I'm playing that line. Hey, look, if your favorite handicapper is giving you that as their play, or they're even putting that anywhere and trying to take credit as being, somebody that's that can break down fights and analyze fights well, then just laugh in their face because it's a complete joke. Let's just get it out of the way. Amanda Ribas is going to dominate. But upsets happen, and them odds you can't do it. I just can't do it. Not I personally, I can't anyway. Ribas has been more active. She's fought the higher level competition recently. She's got the better all round skill set. She's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo. Dangerous striking. She has a good output when she's in the cage. And she's good everywhere. A previous fight, was it Randa Marcos? Took her down, got into full mount within seconds of the first round. And I was so impressed how she held that position. She was very top heavy. And there was not much a strong wrestler in Marcos could do. She couldn't get up. So... she also didn't take her down. I think she only took her down once in the fight as well. So it just goes to show that Ribas is very all-rounded, and she's got skills, seriously. Vicious ground and pound too. She was pummeling on Marcos. At one point, I thought she could have got the fight finished inside the distance. But as soon as that girl gets into position, you don't stand much chance of escaping. As I said, strong, heavy on top, relentless power in the clinch as well. And yeah, when Marcos took her down, she was able to scramble from the bottom. And when you're fighting and someone whose main tool is wrestling and you can scramble on them from the bottom, then, you're you got skills, boy. So, yeah, I agree with Matt how, Paige is going to be looking to raise her value in this fight. Is she going to have enough to do that against Amanda Ribas? Probably not. Do I want to pay 9-1, 10-1 for it? No, I don't. So the pick is Amanda Ribas. Betting predictions, I mean, I'd be more inclined to bet Paige Vanzant, even though I think Ribas is going to dominate just because of the numbers. So that equals stay away for me.
Okay. Well, if you do want to get in on that fight, Ribas is minus 1,001 and Vanzant is plus 676. Now let's move on to the next fight with women's strawweight. And these two women last fought each other in 2019. We have Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. Via Bet Online, Namajunas is minus 190 and Andrade is plus 165. Matt, I'm going to start again with you. Can you give me your breakdown and pick for that fight?
So the last time these two faced off against each other, you can't really glean anything from it because this fight was a flash, and Andrade went full Tully Blanchard and hit a pile driver on the Rose Namajunas, completely decimating her run as strawweight champion. Namajunas returning to the octagon is going to be more focused. I think she's going to be more aware than she was in her last fight, and also she's had the time to kind of mentally prepare with not only losing the title, her other struggles with mental health, which, you need to take the time you need to prepare yourself to do what you need to do, and also dealing with the issues surrounding COVID-19. Andrade also had a long layoff. She immediately went into a fight against Weili Zhang last year in Zhang's home country of China. So both are looking for redemption. Both are looking to reassert themselves at the top of the division. When you look at their common opponents, Namajunas does have the edge because she has been able to beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice when Andrade was not able to do that. And for me, this one freak slam does not indicate to me that Namajunas is an underdog. I think Namajunas, the further this fight goes, the better it is going to be for her, and I think that she's going to get the win on Saturday night.
Yep. Now, Dave, again, do you agree with what Matt said, or do you have a different take on Namajunas and Andrade?
I love Rose. Thug Rose! Listen, 9-4. What? Like, if someone said to me, if you watch Rose Namajunas and didn't know who she was, and then somebody told you that her record was 9-4, you'd be like, oh, well, okay. 13 fights. I'll tell you why this girl is so good, and I'm going to put it down to Pat Barry and Trevor Whitman. In this fight particular, she's going to have that 3-inch reach advantage again, which fared very well for her in the first fight. It was complete dominance. Let's be honest, complete dominance in the first round before that KO power slam came along. She put the Kimura trap on her in the first round, and she got slammed and nearly got knocked out by it in the first round, which was very risky for her to then go ahead and do it again. She's not going to make that same mistake. She was a millisecond away from just letting go of that hold, and Jess would have been disqualified if she landed the same slam, because spike power drivers have been illegal for a very long time, and the only time you can get away with it is if the opponent that you're slamming is holding on to a submission. And that's where Rose went wrong. She should have let go of the submission, but I think it was just too fast, too much in the moment. And if she had such a tight lock on it, she maybe thought, well, in the first round, she slammed me and I landed on the top of my back. Maybe if this happens again, I'll be able to keep that Kimura and tap her. But unfortunately, it didn't go like that. Brutal. It actually becomes uncomfortable to watch if you put that on repeat. Now we've got the resumption of the large cage again, so these girls are not going to have to worry about the small cage, and that is going to favor Rose all over. She's going to find the space that she needs. The first fight, the feints, instant fainting, which was just confusion for Jess, and it just left her head. She didn't know what to do, basically. The footwork from Rose is incredible. It's one of her main tools. One of my favorite tools of Rose is her footwork. Watch what she does with her feet. She switches stances when she's taking a low kick so that there's no power going into that kick on her. It's a thing to behold. It really is. It's Thug Rose for me all the way. Look, Jess just lost. She just took a first knockout to Weili Zhang. We don't know where her head's going to be. I know where Rose's head's going to be. I was winning that fight. I was dominating that fight. I'm going to come into this fight and finish the job, get the job done. Yeah, Jess, look, that slam was impressive. She did start to pick up her leg kicks a little bit. When Rose weren't defending those, I did notice she was picking up a little bit, but if that slam didn't happen, Rose would have continued, in my opinion. Got her hand raised in a unanimous decision. Don't get me wrong, Jess, she's got the power to end it all, but there's a huge lack in technical ability when you compare her to Rose. So for me, the line is justified. If anything, I'd have Rose higher at minus. I'd take Rose at minus 300. I think the line's perfect. I think we're getting value on Rose at that price. Yeah, it's Fug Rose for me all day long.
Awesome. Well, if you want to get in on that fight via BetOnline again, Rose Namajunas is minus 190, Andrade is plus 165. Now let's move on to the next fight. We have bantamweight Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo. Via BetOnline, Yan is minus 213 and Aldo is plus 183. Dave, I'm going to continue with you. Can you give me your breakdown and pick for that fight?
Yeah, this is awkward. Like, the fight, Jose Aldo fought Marlon Moraes. He lost the fight on record, but it seems as though the entire world didn't agree. I'm not too sure watching it back. I mean, the fight could have been a draw. It could have gone to Moraes. It was just one of them fights where you can't really hand the win to the other person. So, in my opinion, it should have been a draw. And I know this was debated, but I do believe that Aldo and Yan are probably the best in the division right now. The problem is Aldo hasn't really done anything in this division, but I guess that doesn't matter because he has done a lot in the featherweight division. So here we are, Petr Yan, Jose Aldo. Now we've got a guy with a ridiculous amount of experience versus Petr Yan, who would seem, he's got 15 MMA fights. Who's Petr Yan? Oh yeah, he'll get mullered by Aldo. No. Forget that, because you look back at Petr Yan, and to become a master of boxing in Russia usually requires over 200 fights and a whole heap of wins to get that title, and that's exactly what Petr Yan has got. His boxing is so crisp. It's going to be an ugly one for Aldo if he wants to stand in the pocket with Yan, that's for sure. Before the McGregor knockout, Aldo was pitted as the GOAT, and now all of a sudden everybody has turned their back on him thinking it's over. But if we bar Holloway out of that, over his last few fights, he hasn't shown a huge decline in his performances. I don't know what people are seeing other than, Conor knocking him out and, the bigger man in Holloway dominating him twice. But other than that, come on, give the guy some credit. Bantamweight, I would have expected Aldo to go to 155, not 135. I'm not sure how this weight cut's going to affect him long term. He's 3-5 in his last 8 fights. He's basically getting a title shot because of who he is, and I think just out of respect, he does deserve it, and he's got the skills to get the job done. Problem is, he's fighting a youthful guy who has all the skills to put him out, and that's Petr Yan. He puts the pressure on, he walks fighters down, he has his high guard, and no expression on this guy's face. He is the scariest bantamweight that there is. He's a lay and pray style of fighter. I think he's going to wait for Aldo to come. I'm not sure if Aldo will come to him, but if he does, boy, we could see another McGregor style finish. A quick boop, bink, see ya. A lot of guys have been avoiding Petr Yan, and I don't even know how to correctly pronounce his first name. I hear Petr Yan, I hear Petr Yan. I don't even know, so I'm just going to call him Yan from now on. The false movements, the fake strikes that he does is one of, not many people do this. He creates a gap in his opponent's movement, which is going to later lead to the opposite side being left out. Go watch the Jimmy Rivera fight. He's throwing these strikes that are not a strike that he likes, so he's getting the reaction from Rivera, only to set it up from the other side and then eventually knock him out. Absolutely incredible. Petr Yan for me all day. I think Aldo could find success, don't get me wrong. I've seen Yan lead. He leads with that leg very heavy, and he puts it down heavy, and Aldo does have some good kicks, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough against the youth and the pressure of Mr. Yan.
All right, Matt, do you want to follow up after Dave for Yan versus Aldo? What is your take on that fight?
Yeah, he was a legend at 145, and the fact that he dropped to 135 is disconcerting to me, and you can see the comparison in when he weighed in. He's lost his last two fights So and he's being walked into a title shot, and a lot of people are saying, like Dave said, does he deserve a shot at a title? Yeah, because he's Jose Aldo. Obviously, he gets the Legends pass. But for me, it's not more about Aldo getting the shot. It's about Jan getting to fight a legend. When you look at the current crop of UFC champions, the UFC's in star-making mode, whether it's Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, at every division except light heavyweight, you have these guys looking to prove themselves as the elite of the elite. And Conor McGregor, who was his star-making fight against? Jose Aldo. So this is another situation on a major card, and you see it in the featherweight, the co-main event and the main event. It's about a newer fighter becoming a star and facing against somebody who's already established themselves inside the octagon. You look at Jan, this is for him the chance to prove that he is the guy at 135. And Henry Cejudo's out of the division. He's out of the UFC, allegedly. Yeah, sure, cool. I'll believe that when I see it. And this is the second fight where we have a Henry Cejudo-based title up on the line. And the last time we saw that happen, no one walked away with the belt because the guy who ended up winning missed weight. So and with everything else going on regarding COVID-19, will Aldo step onto the scale at 135? Will he have been able to cut off the weight to make 135? We don't know what's going to happen until people step on the scales tomorrow morning. So this is going to be an interesting fight. I'm taking Jan. I think this is a coronation for him more than anything. And Aldo's going to put in the effort, but ever since McGregor tagged him on the chin and he's going up against a boxer, so one punch could topple the entire fight for Jose Aldo.
All right, well, if you guys want to get in on that fight via Bet Online, Petr Yan is minus 213 and Jose Aldo is plus 183. Now let's move on to the next fight. We have featherweight Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. Their odds are Volkanovski minus 220 and Holloway plus 185. Matt, I'm going to continue with you. Can you give me your breakdown and pick for that fight?
All right, so I love Max Holloway. Max Holloway is trying to build up this fight and build himself back up after another rough go of it. Talking about Jose Aldo, talking about Rose Namajunas, talking about a lot of other fighters on this card like Paige Van Zant. You've got a fighter who has been dealing with a litany of injuries, a litany of losses. He's lost 2 of his last 3, both of them by decision, and one of them against a former interim lightweight champion, and then the last one against Volkanovski, and he has taken damage in both of those fights. So when you're looking at Volkanovski's masterful performance in the first fight, Holloway battling injuries and personal problems over the past 2 years, this sides more with Volkanovski, and Volkanovski's been continuously training. Holloway was injured. Holloway's had to deal with the after effects of that fight and the fight he lost last year. So it's hard for me to put my money on Max Holloway. It's an easier bet on Volkanovski because he's young. He's not younger. He's older than Max Holloway, but he's taken less punishment inside the octagon, and you have to account for that stuff. You can't just look at the stats, look at the prior performance, and just say Max Holloway is a legendary fighter. We can say the same thing about Jose Aldo, that they are legendary fighters. They are legendary champions inside the UFC, so they've got a chance. You never can count out Max Holloway. You can never count out Jose Aldo. But when you look at the other side of the street and you see a fresher fighter, and there's more on the line for Volkanovski in this. He wants to prove that win wasn't a fluke. And on the biggest stage, and probably the second biggest fight of his career, hell, it's the biggest fight of his career because they're running it back. I think Volkanovski is going to have more in the tank, and we're going to see that over the course of 5 rounds.
Yep. Now, Dave, do you want to follow up on that? Do you agree with everything Matt said, or do you have a different take for Volkanovski versus Holloway?
Yeah, I like the legend take right there. I really do. It looks like all the legends are going to get killed on Saturday, in all honesty. It's not looking good, and the odds are quite correct, in my opinion. We've got Max Holloway, who's been the ultimate adapter inside the octagon. He consistently progresses through his fights and switches up his style and learns as the fight goes. You'll see him in round 1 try and understand his fighter, round 2 test the game plan that he's going to go with, and then from there on out he will just go full force. That wasn't the case against Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski shut that down quick. He really did. Nobody has ever eluded Max's striking offense in the manner that Volkanovski did. I'm telling you that. Max couldn't find his flow. He was still trying to learn what Volkanovski was doing in the 3rd and 4th, whereas in the majority of his other fights, where he's successful in featherweight, he's already figured it out and he's pummeling on his opponent in that sometimes 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. So, it's a real tough one. Now, the first fight wasn't split. When you look at the numbers, it wasn't all that big. But if you watch the actual fight itself, you can see that power difference that Max is getting hurt by Volkanovski. Them blows are not pretty. What former middleweight in Volkanovski. Don't look at it as a small guy, but he's broad. Former Australian professional rugby player. He's a tough dude. I think he's fought heavyweights. Like, the dude is no joke. That first fight, they had equal amount of strikes, 300 and something. Guy Volkanovski had 23 extra significant strikes. I think a few of them would have been the leg kicks and them short, sharp bursts. Max didn't know, just couldn't handle them short, sharp bursts when Volkanovski would decide to attack. It was a real cool fight to watch for somebody like me who just loves breaking this stuff down. Now, the short, sharp bursts of attack that Volkanovski used to get in the range, it'd be great if Max was like Anderson Silva and he had some up kicks in his arsenal or something that he could just throw down the pipe straight down the middle to counteract that. But see, that's a risk in itself. He's gonna, we didn't see Max use many leg kicks because he's going to get taken down. Volkanovski is a high-level wrestler, and all we saw from him in that first fight was 4 takedown attempts, but I don't think he was really going for the takedown. I think it was more of a scare tactic for Max. Just giving Max something to think about, because Max didn't know what was going to come at him. And that's the way to beat Holloway. Pressure and a mixture of different attacks, so we don't know what is coming. You need to mix it up and pressure him, and that's what's going to get the job done. Volkanovski with the feints and the forward pressure and a strong wrestling base that he barely used. And them leg kicks in the first fight, like, damn. Yeah, City Kickboxing, man. They got the gym of the year in 2011. I think Eugene Behrman got Coach of the Year in 2011. 2019. Their record in 2019 was 11-1 or 11-2. Volkanovski is the new era, is the new breed, and Max Holloway is going to struggle, especially when his training camp took place on Zoom and Volkanovski's training camp took place in real life. So 23 more significant strikes than Holloway in the first, 4 takedowns stuffed. Max needs a new game plan. He'll probably have one, but so will Volkanovski. Volkanovski will enter this fight with 2 or 3 game plans. He had the winning game plan in the first one that he can go back to, and I'm sure he's going to have created a few more with Behrman in that City Kickboxing gym. So, yeah, for me, I'm taking Volkanovski this time. I had faith in my boy Holloway in the first fight. I've learned from my mistake. This time, I'll be backing Alexander Volkanovski.
Well, if you guys want to get in on this fight, again, via BetOnline, Volkanovski is -220 and Holloway is +185. Now for the main event. It was originally Gilbert Burns with Usman, but unfortunately Burns tested positive for COVID. So now we are blessed with the fight we all wanted. We have welterweight Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Usman is -255 and Masvidal is +215. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Can you give me your take and breakdown for that main event?
Shout out to the people in the chat first and foremost, saying I look like if Dave and Jay had a baby and if I look like Harry Potter. So, better than the usual comparisons that I get on the SBN MMA live feed. So shout out to you guys. And I will be calling the actions along with Harry Turjanian this Saturday night for SBN MMA. And this is the fight I'm looking the most forward to because it's going to be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's either going to be 5 minutes of Kamaru Usman stuffing Jorge Masvidal like a Thanksgiving turkey, or Jorge Masvidal is going to find something ridiculous and keep this. No one expected this. No one expected the run Jorge Masvidal's been on. He looked like he was going to be a sacrificial lamb for Ben Askren, and then Ben Askren was baptized and sacrificed to the altar of Street Jesus just over a year. It's about a year. It's been a year of Jorge Masvidal being the most talked about fighter in the UFC. Now, you guys know the gambling more than I do, but you have to imagine the lines on this fight have gotten absurdly wonky over the past 5 days. And I think heading into Saturday night, when we head to Yas Island in the oligarchical Arctoplex or whatever they're calling the venue they're running this fight card in, this level of momentum for Masvidal is going to play a huge factor into this fight. Now, Masvidal already playing mind games when he arrived to the UAE in a Versace robe, a floral hat that I think he robbed off of a friend of mine in Williamsburg, and a Trump mask. I will not go into the Trump mask, but if you check out MMA Mania's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, the conversation on that is spicier than Nashville hot chicken. So already Jorge Masvidal causing problems and causing a lot of people to question whether or not they're fans of him or becoming fans of him just for that. You look at Masvidal possibly knowing this fight may have happened. This fight may have broken down. That either Burns or Usman would get caught with the Rona and he might find himself in a championship position. I think him and Conor McGregor had that in the back of their minds over the past few months, knowing that one of these big money fights may fall out and they may end up in the catbird seat. I do not envy Jorge Masvidal's accountant for all the zeros he's going to have to be tabulating over the next few weeks. But Masvidal got the bag. He already won. It doesn't matter if he walks out with the belt or not. He's probably gotten the bag of bags. So already he's winning. He's probably going to be on weight. We're all holding our breath hoping this fight actually happens. But that doesn't mean that Usman isn't the favorite in this fight. He has shown, as we said last week during our preview for this main event that was initially him and Gilbert Burns, he put on a masterclass against Tyron Woodley. He put a masterclass on against Colby Covington. And Covington kind of coming from the same ATT game plan that Masvidal does. And the biggest story of this, and it's probably going to be a part of Dave's analysis as well, Mike Brown, the head coach for Jorge Masvidal, he got popped for Rona. He will not be in the corner of Jorge Masvidal this Saturday night on Yas Island. So that's a big problem. Unless they get the Nextel chirps and they yell, "Where you at?" in between each round, this may be a problem for him. But on top of that, we saw last weekend, Mike Perry had his girlfriend in his corner, and he completely dusted up his competition, but the competition isn't Kamaru Usman. So there's so many variables breaking this fight that make it so hard to pick. But if it were down to me, I hope we have a new champion, because then that creates the idea of a Diaz Masvidal 2 for the strap, or Conor McGregor's like, all right, I'm going to cash in that chip now. Give me Masvidal. Give me this fight. Give me $1 billion. And then we're off to the races here.
Yeah, I agree with you on all that, honestly. But Dave, can we hear your take for the main event for Usman versus Masvidal? But I'm going to read you the odds from just a few days ago, because Usman was minus 305 and Masvidal is plus 255. And again, now, today, Usman is minus 255 and Masvidal is plus 215. So can you give me your take for the main event?
Yep, we lost Conor McGregor as the entertainer who was knocking people out, and we got Jorge Masvidal. So, Street Jesus, game bread. Is he going to drop a three-piece combo on Kamaru Usman? You're damn right he probably will, but will that win him the fight? I'm not too sure. Hey, listen, before YouTube and all these lovely accessible websites, we had like Fight Pass and MMA Form Guide and all these sites where we can see people stand toe-to-toe and swing at each other. There used to be an app I used called Kazaa and iMesh, and I'll never forget watching Jorge Masvidal on the streets with Kimbo Slice's gang in a backyard fighting people. I'll just never forget it, and that's where he comes from. He's a true fighter. So we know what we're getting from Jorge when he comes into this fight. 48 professional fights, plus his boxing and kickboxing and street fighting experience. He is one of the best, if not the best striker in the division. And if Usman wants to hang around like he did with Colby, it might not fare well for him. Now, the difference between Jorge and Burns, for me, is Jorge's clinch game. He has a real strong clinch game, and I know Usman does too. That's one of his main tools. So I will be really interested to see what happens when these two clinch up. I really will. Now, what did Damian Maia say about Jorge? He said after the fight, he is the best BJJ practitioner that he's ever fought. Now, who would have thought that, hey? And this was in a fight where I think Masvidal was robbed, in my opinion. Maia did nothing to him. Maia did absolutely nothing other than attempt submissions that were consistently failing. If that fight would have been on the feet for just a minute and a half longer, they would have had to hand that to Masvidal. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Is Usman going to get the takedown? Probably. I just can't envision Usman and Masvidal scrambling for submissions or anything like that. So I think we can, knock that to the side, and we're going to see either Usman wrestle and pound, or we're going to see them stand and strike. I mean, Usman's been traveling. Usman's been up in that game, and the drama that was surrounding the Black Zillions, or Hard Knocks 365 or Stanford Training Center, whatever name they're under right now, whatever they're doing, Henry Hoof is on good terms with Usman. And he is friends with Trevor Whitman, and they are in contact. Now, if you're Kamaru Usman and you have Trevor Whitman on your speed dial and you have Henry Hooft on your speed dial, and you can get fighting advice of these two at any time you want, you're in a good position, man. Especially when you're undefeated champion. No, I don't think anybody is going to take that bout of Kamaru Usman anytime soon. But if anybody can do it, Jorge is the guy, right? He's the guy that could do it. The odds are going to be up and down, obviously, because Masvidal has a huge fan base and Usman doesn't really have a fan base, which is a shame because he deserves to be up there. Matt was talking about the fighters pay. Masvidal did win. He won that war. He didn't even want more pay. It's not that he wanted the upfront pay. He wanted a percentage of the pay-per-views because he knows that he is going to push that pay-per-view buy rate up so high and they're going to make so much money off him that he deserves a cut of that. He's not asking for 50, 60%. He probably asked for 5, 10% of the cut. And for them not to give it him and then offer Gilbert Burns the fight for a third of the price, it's just disrespectful. And I would have paid Masvidal personally because his stock is huge right now and he's got a lot of eyes on him. And all he's going to do for the UFC is make them more money. So, yeah, he did get what he wanted. Karma came back round. The UFC stuck their middle finger up to him. And then Corona come and got Gilbert Burns. God bless his heart. I hope he's okay. I'm sure he will be. And now we're back here again. And Jorge versus Usman on 6 days notice or 7 days notice?
About 6.
I could talk about
Dave, to your
fight,
point,
guys.
I don't mean to cut you off, but when you look at the UFC making this fight, do you think they didn't want Masvidal versus Usman because they thought they can get more out of Masvidal before an Usman fight because they were worried that Kamaru would dust him?
Look, it's a good point. I was thinking, to be honest, I think the UFC they are all about the money right now. In my opinion, I think they've. Yeah. I know Masvidal. I know they didn't directly say no to him. I know they didn't directly say no. He basically wanted a cut of the pay-per-view and then his upfront pay. I think the upfront pay is $500,000. And then he would have only asked for 5-10% of the pay-per-view. And look, his management comes to agreement. They couldn't come to agreement. So he just said no. It wasn't like they left on bad terms. But we know how the media portrays things, and they rub it in. They stir the pot. It's not like there was some huge bad blood or anything. I don't think that's the case. I just think it was just money. And the fact that Gilbert Burns was riding high and Gilbert Burns' stock, it's nowhere near Masvidal's, but it is slowly rising. They were able to get Gilbert Burns a third of the price of Masvidal. I mean, they would have saw that as a bargain. not as more popular fight, but certainly a bargain. And yeah, they could have, like you say, they could always be waiting, and they could make Masvidal Usman when they want, I guess. Or Masvidal Burns if he would have won. So yeah, look, I could bang on about this fight all day long. There's so much I can go into. We could be here for hours on end. Usman's done some interesting things during his time. He's brought in certain guys who are real impressive. Cosmo Alexander being one of them, elite level kickboxer. And we know he's had Whitman in the new camp. Usman's going to be ready for the striking game. He was ready for the striking game of Burns, and before he was preparing for Masvidal before that fight fell through. So he's also going to be prepared for that. And people talking about George not having enough training. George was also prepared. You think these guys ain't been preparing for each other since they knew that these fights could possibly? Of course they are. Fighters only go into a gym and prepare for one fighter when they have a fight camp scheduled for that fucking particular fight. That's it. Like, any other time, they're preparing for all the guys that are around them, and especially at this high level, yeah. God, it's a hard fight to pick, but I'm gonna go with Usman. George has that flair, that striking ability, the clinch game. He's got a jiu-jitsu threat, but Usman's wrestling is so strong, and we've saw Masvidal get out grappled by Damian Maia. So I think that Usman can put some pounding on Masvidal, but I hope they stand and bang. I hope we can see a couple of rounds. It could be a split decision. You never know. It could be looking like the Colby Usman fight. It really could. But I don't know. This is just a hard fight to. Kamaru Usman is my pick, but I'm fanboying too much. I'm fanboying way too much. I'm too excited for this. Fight Island's finally here, and yeah, everyone enjoy it. That's what I say. Enjoy it and just have some fun bets. Make this one fun.
Just a quick thing, Dave, and I just want to put this as a general question. This is not the biggest fight of Masvidal's career. The biggest fight of his career was Madison Square Garden. This is the biggest fight of Kamaru Usman's career. It's bigger than the Covington fight. It's bigger than the Tyron Woodley fight. This is the bigger fight for Usman. Mm-hmm. Masvidal seems more comfortable in those situations. When you saw the fight against Colby, Usman really shirked a lot of the spotlight, a lot of the frustration, a lot of the agita, as we New Yorkers like to say, that came with Colby Covington, his fight hype, and everything else. Of course, he, showed up and showed out against Covington in a performance that I personally wanted to give an FYC Emmy to, a 4-year consideration to, because it was just beautiful. Love watching him get punched in the face. But Masvidal had the entire UFC machine behind him for the Diaz fight. It was Madison Square Garden. The Rock showed up. The President of the United States was there. And Masvidal was nonplussed by it. And he, whether you like it or not, he beat Nate Diaz. And he was frustrated and upset, not because of what happened, but because he didn't get a chance to knock Diaz out.
He wants that fight.
Have to
he wants
look
the second fight.
At the fundamental. What was that?
He wants the second fight. If he gets this bout, he will ask for Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
But that to me is a bigger indicator than anything, is how people handle big moments. Because Usman, you saw the Palms Casino brawl. In those moments, Usman gets in his feelings, and Masvidal is a better worker than Colby Covington. He knows how to draw the heat out of a fighter and get in their heads. We saw it in the 5-second performance against Ben Askren. We saw it against Diaz. We've seen it. And also, Jorge Masvidal has fought on a fight island before. He fought for Bodog Fights, which had fights on an actual island. Him and Chael Sonnen are two of the few legendary UFC fighters who could say they actually fought on a fight island and not, an oligarch's house somewhere in the UAE. So that might be an advantage as well. Like, there's a lot of things here that give Masvidal the edge, and I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, you're completely right. There's a lot of opinions that can be thrown at this fight, and that's why it just makes this fight really hard to give a solid prediction. I don't care, no one can give a solid prediction, which we should probably look at the odds then. and say, wow, how many times has Jorge cast now as the underdog? You know, Jorge bets on himself as well, right? You go look at some of his interviews. This guy is like, come on, bookmakers, put my keep putting them odds up because I'm going to be betting on myself for a fourth time now. Yeah, it's I'm just stuck for words because it's just so incredible. Like, I was expecting Burns and Usman. Obviously, I was excited for that, but with them being friends, you never know how much like they really want to, take each other's head off. But this one, they don't like each other. There's beef. There's animosity. I think they're both gonna want to hurt each other. The thing with Masvidal is the difference with Masvidal and Colby is the cardio and how well is Jorge gonna handle that heavy pressure from Kamaru. Because the problem is when you see Jorge getting attacked, it's like sometimes he don't care. You watch him against Diaz, he'll block. Diaz is coming with these combos. He'll block one strike, block the other, and then when it comes to the final strike, he lets him, puts his hands down, gets hit, and then smiles. Masvidal's a weird fight. I can't work out everything with Masvidal, but he's certainly an anomaly in this division, in this company, and I think is great for the UFC. He's great for Kamaru Usman. Usman should be thanking him. He's going to bring this pay-per-view stock up so bigger than it already was going to be, because let's face it, there's no sports right now. I think everybody is excited for UFC this weekend because there's not much else to look forward to. You're totally correct with Jorge's he had his biggest fight, but can he sell more pay-per-views than that one? I mean, there's a good chance he can, just because of the promotion and marketing that's been done, how his name has continuously gone up since these points, and now he's got his title fight, BMF versus the welterweight champion. It's going to be absolutely incredible, and I can't wait.
Yep. And just to recap everything, so Matt, you're going with Masvidal, and Dave, you're going to go with Usman. So there we have it. For via Bet Online, again, if you do want to get in on that fight, Usman is minus 255 and Masvidal is plus 215. But real quick, let's just hop on over to the live chat real quick, just to see if we have any questions. Ken Peacock says, "What's up, Dave, Lee, and Jay?" There we go. I know someone asked for a parlay. Yes, there we go. AJS. So, Dave, do you have any parlays that you want to give out?
I do, but I'm gonna plug it, and you need to go to SBR's UFC page. Go check out this week's Punch and Parlay. I've got 2 legs, 2 fighters, straight picks in the parlay this week for plus 115. If you want to know who them guys are, go over to sportsbookreview.com/picks/UFC, and you'll see the Punch and Parlay right there.
Yep, there we go. And then Gabriel Katz, regarding the Aldo and Jan fight, he said Jan is the lock. Ryan Ramstack says no way Aldo wins this decision. He also says, I think live betting Jan after the first 2 rounds, if it's close game, will give you some great value.
Yeah, live betting is one of the best ways to profit in MMA. I will tell anybody, that takes this serious. Live betting can be extremely valuable. Go look at some of the plays I've given out on my Twitter and the Sports Keg. You get you get value that you just can't get before the fight, because you're seeing it play out as it happens and you know where the fight is heading. It's incredible when you get a first round and say, for example, Rose is winning that all of that first round, and at the end it just totally switches, but the line, because there's only a few seconds before the end of the round, the line doesn't switch all that much. You can hammer it whilst they're sat in the corners and then get the better fighter who's progressing through. Max Holloway is one of the best for live betting, and has been one of the best for live betting for sure, because he progresses through the fight, and they're the type of fighters you want to live bet on. Yeah,
regarding the Holloway fight, Ken Peacock says, I think this is an in-play fight. So there we go on that.
Damn, my boy Ken knows every time. My boy Ken from London, he knows what's good. I love Ken, man. Shout out Ken.
Shout out to Ken Peacock. Philly Sports Passion 85 says Jorge is overhyped and got lucky with a knockout. Usman is going to send him back to reality. Matt, do you have anything to say about that?
Oh, sweetie muffin, you're adorable. Masvidal's been in the game for a long time. He may not be as proficient as Kamaru Usman, but a fighter is a fighter. And he beat two of the most lauded fighters by the MMA fan base and the MMA media of recent history. He sent Ben Askren into retirement. Like actual retirement, not the Terry Funk, I'm going to go retire from one so I can go to the UFC kind of retirement that he did before. This is an actual, I am going to step away because this man destroyed my soul. And then he forced the New York State Athletic Commission to stop a fight. If you know anything about the New York State Athletic Commission, I won't say anything, but if you know, you know. If you've dealt with them like I've had in numerous levels throughout my professional life, you know, they're a fun group of people. So Masvidal's not a joke. He's not a Peter McNeely hype job the way Colby Covington is. He is a guy who's a serious threat to this championship. And yeah, he might have only had 7 days to prepare for this fight officially, but he was preparing for this fight the entire quarantine. You cannot doubt the fact that Masvidal was staying ready for a situation like this. And if you got a problem with it, if you disagree with me, follow me on Twitter at mryanconsulting. You can yell at me, leave Dave and Lee out of it, no snitch tagging, but make sure you know that the takes are going to be hot and my frustration level with you people is already peaked.
Well, there you have it. And that's all I have for the live chat. Thank you everyone for tuning in and giving your thoughts in on the live chat. If you are not following Dave and Matt on Twitter, like Matt just said, you can follow him at mryanconsulting, and you can follow Dave at dmanion_. And if you want to check out any analysts for the UFC fights by SBR's top analysts, head on over to sbrpicks.com. So thank you guys so much for your time. I really enjoyed your breakdowns. Until next time.
Thank you.